Secure some price here from Yellow Dog at Penticton, trading in the historic Wall Center for the day, and joined by Jeff Paterson, Canucks reporter, host of Rinkwide Vancouver, from the South Okanagan Events Center, where day 2 of training camp is underway. Jeff, how are we?
Good, guys, and your setting looks great. Looks a little familiar too. Meet and greet there last night.
Yeah, good fun. You've been here before. You've done this before, but the vibes feel a little bit different from year to year. Although expectation a year ago was probably pretty decent as well.
Yeah, I think overall the Canucks were pretty happy with day 1 of training camp here. Now, most coaches would tell you that. I have people in my mentions, who stood out, who scored the highlight reel goals, who was the flashiest player. I can tell you that day 1 was not about that at all. And in fact, the column I wrote at Canucks Army was basically, this wasn't about standing out, it was about fitting in. And they did a lot of teaching. They drilled down on the basics of some of the systems that this new coaching staff, and it's not just Adam Foote, it is an entire new coaching staff, to the point Elias Pettersson was asked about getting to know some of the new assistants, and he said, yeah, I've said hi to a few of them. And then he said, I've forgotten a couple other names. So there's learnings at all levels for everybody here early in training camp. But I will say this, that the pace was good. The investment from the players was what you wanted to see. Adam Foote singled out the leadership of Tyler Myers and Marcus Pettersson in the early group. And then name-check Brock Boeser and Elias Pettersson as guys that he thought had pretty good first sessions. There were some issues with the ice, which is novel because it's such a terrific facility. And we haven't heard that in years gone by. And, of course, the Penticton V stepping up to the Western Hockey League this year. They get their season going next week. So I was a little surprised to hear and see that, the ice was a little bit of an issue for the second group of the day. But when you think of the wear and tear that 59, I think it is, players that are on the roster here, put on a sheet of ice, you can sort of understand some of that. So all things considered, I think the hockey club was pretty pleased what it saw on the opening day, and now it's about building on that, and I think ramping things up, giving these players a little bit more to chew on. Rick Tocchet called them staples. There's some new terminology, but essentially that's what Adam Foote was trying to get through to his guys on the first day of camp.
We've been laughing, Blake and I, listening to Foote all week because he does the Rick Tocchet thing. I call them, and then fill in the word.
Gives us the glossary.
I call them numbers. Yes. I call them staples.
Yeah, contract with the players. You dropped that one as well. So
very good.
You're right. They are cut from the same cloth, but slightly different terminology. But it all leads to the same thing, I think.
And yet his approach has been kind of the opposite of Tocchet here, Jeff. He has been so much love, so much support. He has been the seemingly so far the kind, nurturing parent, and I think it was, and I think it's brilliant. Coming off where they were last year. I mean, I think the last thing you wanted as a Canucks player was to have some hard driving, angry, spit and fire coach here at training camp, and Foote's gone entirely in a different direction.
Yeah, and I think I applaud that. What happened here last year can't be repeated. We know that. Most guys talk about wanting to turn the page, but I thought we heard some honesty yesterday. First time we've heard from Thatcher Demko since last season, and he was one of the guys that sort of pushed back last year that things were a problem in that locker room, but yesterday copped to it and basically just said that there were things that we just simply couldn't overcome. Elias Pettersson talked about some of that a little bit yesterday as well. So as much as they want to turn the page, it's not as simple as sweeping last year under the rug. I mean, they have to take some learnings from it, and I've said with you guys before, I do think that this team's leaning into good vibes, and we'll see how far good vibes can take them, but we know last year the vibes were not right in a lot of ways and for much of the season, and so the old coach isn't here. It's a new guy in charge with some new faces and some other new voices, and we'll see how it plays out. Not giving out letter grades after one day of training camp, but they'll continue to chip away here and get ready for the first preseason game on Sunday night.
Catch us up on what's happening there today, Jeff. Day 2 of Canucks camp.
More of the same. No switches from any of the groups. Foote had mentioned yesterday that they were tinkering with the idea of moving a couple of players around, but certainly with the first group of the day that's on the ice, which is Group B, and that includes Quinn Hughes and Evander Kane and some other notables. It's the same group that skated as a group yesterday. So, I think today is just going to be more about ramping it up. They're going to give the players a little bit more There was a lot of work yesterday done on defensive zone coverage and breakouts and trying to get that defenseman into the rush to make it a four-man wave, essentially. So, it's a practice session. This is where I come back to this idea of people that want to know about standouts. Really, training camp just looks like a lot of hockey practices.
Fair enough.
There's some nice goals scored, sure, but this wasn't about end-to-end, guys going through an entire team. There was no scrimmage action at all. The one camp scrimmage is set for noon on Saturday. So really, this is just a new coach trying to get through to his group of players and instill a lot of the beliefs that he has for them and the way that he wants them to play all year.
Did it say something to you, Jeff, that he had activation of the defense as part of the day one program? Like, is that a tell there? What did you read out of that?
Yeah, like Rick Tocchet wanted that from his defenseman as well, but outside of Quinn Hughes, for a lot of the last few years, they just haven't had the necessary personnel. This is going to be the first time, if everybody stays healthy, that Quinn Hughes is going to have Marcus Pettersson in the lineup with him together to form a pretty solid 1-2 punch over on the left side. And then, of course, you got Phil Hronek and Tyler Myers. For me, the first day of camp is the interesting parts are the way players are rolled out, in what sort of deployment and configurations, and to see the top four skating as the two pairs that they will start the season with. They're leaving nothing to chance there. They're allowing those guys to form some chemistry from day one of training camp. And then the experimentation comes a little bit deeper in the lineup. Like, there were some eyebrows raised when Tom Willander got the first chance to skate with Derek Forbort. And, do we read into that? Hey, Willander has leapt ahead of the other guys here. What I think is happening, and I haven't had this confirmed by anybody in the organization, but my sense is that there's a little bit of tough love here for D-Petey, that this organization loves this guy. And they have high hopes, and he's going to be a big part of this season and for many more. But I think they don't want him falling into any sort of sophomore trap that, hey, I've made it, easy street now. And I think that's part of why they sent him to Seattle, is the Prospects games last weekend. And here he is starting training camp. He's paired with Parker Alkos. And I think it's that carrot that, hey, if you want to be the guy that's playing with Forbort and that's the third pair on opening night, then continue to show everything that you showed last year and just find a way to raise it up a notch. So,
do you think that's a reaction to the way he arrived, or do you think that was just the plan anyhow?
Yeah, my sense is that they're still delighted with this guy and that he hasn't done anything to fall out of favor in any way whatsoever. I think this is maybe Adam Foote recognizing that there's a little bit of Adam Foote in D-Petey and just the way they approach the game and the physical nature and everything else. And I think it's that they just don't want him falling into any kind of comfort zone whatsoever. And I don't necessarily, I don't mind that. Like, this isn't mind games. It is just, again, letting a player recognize that he hasn't quite made it yet, that there are still levels that he has to get to. And so that sort of seems like the way that they're handling him.
And we should mention, if you don't know the name, Parker Alkos, right shot defenseman from Port Moody, was a 6th-round pick in 2024. And doesn't score a whole lot with the Edmonton Oil Kings, so that's not exactly prime real estate for a training camp pair.
Jeff, you talked about the lack of spectacular plays here in the early going because of the nature of the drills and that sort of thing. That's sort of part of the impetus for our poll question here, is that it's going to be hard for people to get intel on exactly where Elias Pettersson's bounce-back season is at without a balance, a body of work from which to work with. So when is it going to hit home? What needs to happen for you to really believe that this is a different Elias Pettersson? Is it a preseason game? Is it a regular season game? Is it a larger body of work, a quarter of a season before you're going to be convinced that this is a different EP40?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be sooner than a quarter of the season, just because the start of this year is important with a new head coach, with the fact that they want to get back to the playoffs. You don't want to fall behind the 8 ball. We've seen that happen as recently with Bruce Boudreau, and it's just too hard a league to constantly play catch-up. So they got to find a way to get out of the gate reasonably well. Only 2 of their first 8 games are on home ice, and that's going to present some challenges as well. So, look, I'm looking for some flashes. I watched EP40 pretty closely here on the first day of camp. Getting around the ice, so wasn't laboring in any way, and that certainly puts him in a better place than he was 12 months ago. But, I think starting in the scrimmage, and I don't know if he'll be part of the traveling crew to Seattle for Sunday night, but he's going to get into early preseason action. I just need to see some flashes. I need to see some things that show me that there's a confidence, whether it's stick handling, beating guys one-on-one, whether it's, the big shot, like some of those things that made him the player that he was when he got to 102 points. We're not writing the book on EP40 season in the preseason, but I do need to see a few moments here and there that just leave you tantalized and wanting to see a little bit more.
I don't even need bottom line. I don't even need for those chances to go in, Jeff. Just the confidence to pull them off, to me, is probably going to be enough, right?
Yeah, I think that's how you kind of judge him, is that use preseason to experiment a little bit. They've put him in a position to succeed. They've given him Jake DeBrusk, Brock Boeser, two guys that he's familiar with. I would think they would roll into the preseason. It was kind of funny yesterday. Adam Foote was asked a whole bunch of questions about his deployment, and his answer seemed to be, well, if it works. So, he's got things in mind. I think he's had a summer here of devising line combinations and defensive pairings and hoping that they're going to stick and allow this team to have success. But there have to be some contingencies. No coach in the history of hockey has stuck with the same line combinations over the course of a season, so there will be some mixing and matching. But I think it makes perfect sense when you've got a star player in Pettersson who has to find his game again. Give him two of your best offensive weapons in Boeser and DeBrusk, two guys that he has played with, two guys that he's had some success with, and let them form some chemistry from the first day of training camp. And that seems to be the rollout of their plan here right now.
If there's one thing we can point to with Adam Foote, Jeff, and as we know, it's a thin book on this rookie head coach in his first National Hockey League head coaching job, it's the fantastic work that he did with the penalty kill unit last season, all the way up to third in the National Hockey League from 17th, and we remember even the seasons before, Jeff, just how bereft they were in this unit. We know that Pius Suter, their primary penalty killer, is now in St. Louis. In fact, 3 of their top 6 penalty-killing forwards are no longer with the team, if you count JT Miller and Danton Heinen, who were traded in season. So that leaves Bluger, that leaves Sherwood, Drew O'Connor, Connor Garland started doing some of it. I was most interested to hear Foote talk about Boeser as a penalty killer yesterday and give him such a vote of confidence that he thinks this is an area of the game where Brock can excel.
Yeah, likewise. I asked that question. I just, first of all, wanted to find out if they were going to work on special teams here in Penticton. He said maybe on Sunday, but I don't think we'll see anything here over the next couple of days. And then I said, do you anticipate any changes? Anybody you're considering that maybe you haven't in the past? And yeah, he name-checked Boeser right away and then went into talking about what a smart player he is and big body. Look, Brock has worked his way to a point where he's been out as a staple in late-game situations protecting leads. That is generally 5-on-6. 4-on-5 is a little bit different here, but Brock is a smart player. There's no question. I didn't know if I'd see the day where Brock Boeser killed penalties in the National Hockey League, and that day could come as early as Sunday if he's in the preseason lineup. So things do move quickly here, but I'm like you. I mean, that certainly caught my attention with that answer, and you rolled through the guys that I think would be ahead of Brock Boeser, but coaches generally like to have 3 sets of forward groups, so could Brock Boeser? He was cautious when he said we have to monitor his minutes. He's going to be a power play guy. They don't want to overload Brock Boeser, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like Brock Boeser is going to be in the consideration. Certainly, Foote also mentioned some of the young guys. We've heard that before. It sounds good, but how many years did we go through? Vasily Podkolzin should be developed into a penalty killer, and he never got a sniff at the NHL level. So one thing to say it on the opening day of training camp, another to actually put it in action, and let's see which young guys make the hockey club and are available to him to be a penalty killer.
I do have faith in Ratu, though. I think Ratu is going to be an excellent penalty killer.
Good reach and all that. You don't need speed, right? Like Pius Suter is a fabulous penalty killer. He's not a fast guy. Boeser could be okay. It's the wiliness sometimes of the penalty kill, and who knows. Matt was talking about the activation of the defense. They seem to have brought that to the goalies as well. Goalies fetching the puck behind the goal and making breakout passes to the half wall to the defenseman. I mean, that could be situational, but and it's not like the Canucks never did that. But you wonder if that becomes more of a bottom line rule for the Canucks.
Yeah, I think we learned last year that Kevin Lankinen did a nice job. Rick Tocchet talked about it all the time, about how quickly Lankinen was able to get out of the net to stop hard rims around, and then from there try to move the puck to his defenseman. Thatcher Demko has suitable skills to be a puck handler as well. We should mention that Kevin Lankinen is on baby alert here and could leave camp at any moment. Demko let that cat out of the bag yesterday, so Demko himself becoming a father for the second time over the summer, and said that Lankinen was picking his brain about fatherhood. So those two have been in Vancouver working together since August, and kind of traveling the same path as young parents or parents to be here. So
and just retreating to Vancouver, or retreating where, to Europe, or what?
No, I think just getting back to Vancouver.
Okay.
That was my understanding of the situation, but Lankinen was here on the ice this morning, so hasn't got that phone call just yet, but I do wonder if he'll be available for the scrimmage on Saturday. Probably takes him out of the running to be a goaltending option for the first preseason game on Sunday down at Climate Pledge Arena, but storyline to monitor, but should be a good news story for Kevin Lankinen and his growing family. Other than that, I think they're trying to get the goaltenders involved here through the drills, and if that's another way that they can do it, then it may just be as simple as that, get them some touches of the puck. You know, it is an interesting, and I asked Patrick Alvin at the press conference on Wednesday about beneath the NHL level, like Yuri Patera is certainly the forgotten man, right? Played 7 games in Abbotsford last year and then got hurt and wasn't available, but he's here, he's under contract, and so where does he slot in? Obviously Nikita Tolopilo, and they are so high on Ty Young as well. Do they run with 3 goaltenders out in Abbotsford? I mean, that rarely works with 2 nets for practice. But I am curious to see what their plan is beneath the NHL level and who would be the first guy to get the call if something were to happen to either Demko or Lankinen.
Yep. I think you've pretty much covered what's ahead this weekend, Jeff, with the scrimmage and the preseason game, but please do fill me in if we've missed anything that's to come here today or tomorrow. And also wanted to give you the opportunity. Rinkwide Vancouver is back. We've already got an episode with you and Irf. Tell them what you got planned here on Rinkwide.
Yeah, well, scrimmage Saturday, it's going to be interesting. This is the $40 ticket that the Canucks were asking people to pay for. I am curious to see on a sunny Saturday afternoon, and who knows how many more there will be here in the Okanagan. Will people come indoors to watch the Vancouver Canucks scrimmage at that price point? So that's one of the things I'm going to be monitoring, but obviously attention will be on the ice, and I would assume it's as simple as Group A against Group B unless they find some way to tinker with their rosters and their lineups. And then Sunday, I was asking around here yesterday because I thought it might be as simple as the game group would have a quick morning skate here and then fly to Seattle, but apparently that's not the way the Canucks are going to roll things out on Sunday, but they will have a group of hand-chosen guys that are going to represent the Canucks for the first preseason game against the Seattle Kraken, and the rest of the group will skate and then head for Vancouver, and then the second part of training camp, the preseason portion, will commence on Monday with practices at Rogers Arena, and away they go. So there'll be lots to chew on here over the weekend, and by Monday's show, there will actually be a National Hockey League game with Vancouver Canuck players and hopefuls suiting up, and the storylines will flow from there. And yes, Rinkwide, I can tell you that we're going to do the final 2 preseason games of the exhibition schedule to get a little dust off and rust off, and just make sure that we've got our I's dotted and T's crossed, and then we'll be ready to roll on October the 9th for the first of 82 regular season games. And, of course, last year we had some fun with the American Hockey League run to the Calder Cup Championship. We'll see what this season brings and how it unfolds for the Vancouver Canucks. We won't worry about April and May and June at this stage right now. But, yeah, Rinkwide's back. Irf's going to be my wingman for about 60 of the games, and then usual cast of characters will fill in and pinch hit when he is unavailable. So really excited about it, looking forward to it. And there's so many uncertainties around this season that I think the storylines will be plentiful, and we'll start tracking them on Rinkwide for the final 2 preseason games, and then October 9th against Calgary when the curtain comes up and they start playing for keeps.
Calgary Edmonton as your preseason games, and then Calgary Edmonton to start. So you'll be very familiar with those 2 teams.
Yeah, and Jeff and Irf have already published the first episode, Rinkwide Vancouver, in season 25-26. Marvelous stuff, my friend. Thank you for this. We'll catch up on Monday.
All right, sounds good. Have a great weekend.